Peace to the family, peace to the gods. You know, it's funny, I wrote about this in a chapter in my book, and I started spreading out the ideas around it to spark up conversations, and I've been hearing plenty of beautiful conversations sparked up around it since I've been having it, because the whole idea was to spread the philosophy and the ideas around it. Some people were saying, man, Keys, I thought you was all about spreading black excellence. No, I've never been about that. And matter of fact, let me say this. If it has seemed like I've been about that, I apologize. Because I look at everything as a means to an end. How do we navigate the world to get to power, to have the leverage, to do the spook thing that we really want to do, right? It's like my affinity for teaching about technology, blockchain, things of that nature, was always under the guise of, can we get ahead utilizing existing technologies to build our own parallel worlds and systems? Most people who criticize things don't understand them as deeply as I do, and they don't have a depth of knowledge on these subjects, right? So sometimes I'm jumping in things so deeply optimistic about this is what could happen if we get ahead of them, but we always late, so therefore it's not usually any power in it. There's a reason why I've had the #1 show, right? Been a #1 thought leader in the culture, at least by my metrics. Yet, I haven't gotten any recognition or any celebration or any rewards from any of the boule outlets that represent so-called black excellence. I haven't been rewarded not one black excellence token of appreciation by the black community. It's because they know I represent black power. It's really that simple and quite frank, right? It makes no sense, but they understand that this is a conversation. I'm somebody that will not be controlled. I believe in the sovereignty of our people, right? I believe in our own economics. I believe in building our own parallel systems. And now those people believe in me because they have no other choice, because this administration has made it so hard that they won't be able to get paid, right, from their wealthy donors, because essentially he made it illegal. And activism has become a career choice, right? The boule-isms are now uncomfortable, and they fear losing their money, and they fear losing their power. And when they start losing their money and their power, that's when they put on their blackness. Blackness is for them is a mask that they can wear so they can be a part of the collective family, even though they play for a different team, right? As we move throughout these spaces, I've always been the one behind the scenes, advising, trying to get people to work together for the collective good. But I promise you that most people behind the scenes, 99% of them are just black capitalists. Don't want to do anything at all, which is why most people are afraid to empower individuals such as myself. Because they like, wait a minute, if you can do that by yourself, what would you do with the right resources? You would shift things up so much that it will force us to be uncomfortable and have to do the same thing and get behind you. So black excellence has always been a scam, right? We may celebrate an individual because of their success. It's the same thing if you look at somebody in your family. Blood makes your family, right? In this diaspora, melanin makes us family. But doesn't make us part of the same team because we don't have the same vision, the same values, same ideas about collective progress and or sovereignty. Right? When we talk about artificial intelligence, it's not so that we can go invest in their machines. It's so that we can have an understanding, we can have mastery, ownership, and control because the technology owns to know it. When we look at blockchain, I say it is the dream of the radical revolutionary. The problem is most people just don't understand it enough. Most people consider themselves to be revolutionary and radical and sovereign thinking, don't understand decentralization enough to pick it up and teach our people. And so anybody that teaches it, they say, you going with that world order. No, I'm trying to build our own world order. So then when you come from a place of a lack of resources and you try to participate in any endeavors of capitalism and make you some money, right, and learn the skill sets that the market rewards and you get you some money, right, people will then punish you for that as well, for your success and your failures. But how can you go to war? How can you build your own without resources? Especially being of a generation who's seen it fail over and over. I grew up in the midst of Black Power in Oakland, California. And I'm not talking about the Black Panthers. I grew up in an environment where men really had power. I seen it with my own eyes. I experienced it. I was a part of it. So to me, it was never about the past. It was my present. It was my upbringing. And my whole goal was trying to figure out, how do we duplicate, replicate, but then do it with the wisdom in it and learn from the lessons of what made it fall and fail in the first place. So yes, we participate in entrepreneurship and business. We learn how to market. We learn how to brand. Sometimes we do things right. Sometimes I do things wrong. See, the Panthers, what the Panthers had, Jim, and it's funny because I went to go visit Frederica Newton in Oakland, California at the Black Panther Museum. The Black Panthers, they organized with their women. And it was a different time in community, right? The black women were all about the black family and the Black Power movement during that time. Of course, the FBI destroyed all of that. But at that time, they had over 63 programs. And these were community organized programs at a time where Black excellence did not take over the airwaves, so people understood that the only progress was power. Now, theirs was depth into a political philosophy that most black people just don't believe in today. Matter of fact, Huey P. Newton is barely celebrated. He was throwing on shirts or tokens of, different toys and trinkets and, but he's not celebrated in the same midst that a Martin Luther King is or Malcolm X. But why not? He produced so many programs, and he had wealthy donors. He had the community that did it, that would put money into a system over and over and over. But now we think everything is a scam, so what black man can do anything besides go through the route of capitalism successfully, get enough resources, and then do the right thing. That's the route that they're trying to force people, or we could collaborate and cooperate amongst each other. But the problem is that they successfully destroyed the trust that we have within each other. So the quantum leap that we could have will just be creating council memberships and saying, well, let's all work together. And I know y'all be like, Keith, but you know everybody. But niggas don't want to work together. I'm going to be honest. You can't find me a single person that you consider to be a friend of mine, a peer resource that I know that I haven't pitched these ideas to. Like, it ain't nobody. It's just people don't believe in the collectivism because we've seen things fail so many times that people don't believe in Black Power. That's just the reality of it. And Black Power, mostly because people don't understand it. It's hard to not believe in it when the whole reality of it is that we're supposed to be focused on collective ownership and progress, so we can't be hit so hard when these things that happen in the media and the news, they shouldn't be affecting us as much. But, again, as somebody who's been doing this by my own resource, literally, we've been self-funding everything, bootstrapping it from the ground. This is what I consider to be grassroots in a lot of ways. It's just my interpretation of it. Because nobody has assisted it thus far. Now, I believe that the resources are here, they're coming, and it's just about now probably the way that we organize it. And I'm always looking for more resources. I'm always looking to learn more and get more knowledge so that I can do things better and better and better. The one thing that I learned, though, is that people will rather criticize than help you construct anything. People will watch you but won't help you. So therefore it becomes this thing where a lot of us become jaded by the time we end up getting into position, and people stop believing in it completely, and then they grow into this pessimism about the reality of what can be done. And I get it, because some of it is steeped in the actual experience, right? And a lot of us are just not grabbing that nuts and having your power and saying, let's go do it, because most people are fearing the future. Well, this happened and that happened and that happened, so they don't see themselves as warriors. But then I tell them all the time, I say, well, what about your children? You don't have any power, so you can't guarantee their future. You can't guarantee their safety. You can't guarantee no money. You can't guarantee nothing. The biggest risk is taking no risk at this point. We need to be utilizing every single effort. That's why we do things and then we settle, and then all of us, we all have our own individual survivalist things that we need to do. Usually when one person rises, they're taking care of so many other people, which deplete their resources, so they never actually have as much, because the family don't work as a team, and it's usually one member of the team taking care of the family. So there's so many different things that you're dealing with, especially as first generational wealth builders, curse breakers. We should be second, third, fourth generation into these things, building on top of, not always starting. We shouldn't be like, well, do it like Huey did, do it like Fred did. Like, damn. We starting over again? Obviously it was hard for them. It's definitely going to be hard for us. We now live in a more complex world. We have more resources, but the fertility of the mind of the people is not the same. We have more ethnicities as well. People have more ways of thinking, right? And people are more individualist than ever before. So you get into this mode of thinking, okay, well, what's the best way for me to do? Let me try to just build it myself. And then you realize how hard that route is, and it's not that it's impossible, it's that you're going against a timetable. As you're building, somebody else is destroying. Then you're dealing with the complexities of changing in an advanced world, technologically advanced world. Then you're getting new enemies, and it's not even just humans, but machines. Yesterday, AI just passed a Turing test to where it fooled humans and professionals to make it think that it was human. A non-entity fooled humans to making it think it was human. And we don't even have conversations around this. So when we start talking about radicalism or revolutionary, as somebody who understands the trends that's happening, the technological cycles, and I get deep into these studies, not for capitalism, for sovereignty, ultimately for the future. It may come out as a way that people believe that you're marketing ideas that come from them. No, I want us to understand it so that they can come from us, so that we can have power in it. But the problem is usually those who understand it the most are already working for the machine, because they went through the schooling, they got the education, they become the scientists, the engineers. So the most brilliant of us have jobs. They don't have their sovereignty, and unless you have the money, the resources, the funds to be able to hire them, then we don't even have control over our most brilliant and brightest minds. And black men went to college. Between 1976 and 2010, there was an increase, I believe, by 25% of college enrollment for black men. What happened in the middle of Obama administration that made black men fall off? Well, number one, there was high schools were not given the proper education for black men to be qualified to go into college. Number two, black men that went into college at a time, the actual median income dropped, right? And then, of course, there was an increase in debt for people going to college, where the average black man holds $28,000 in debt, college debt. So we end up losing more collectively. Again, there goes that individual. People will point to the individual, but we have to look at it as a collective. So black men grew nihilism towards, right, the Boule route. And then social media comes and people say, wait a minute, let me start focusing on how can, well, actually at that time, I don't think a lot of people were focused on social media. That was early days, just driving into it. But that's where the distractions started to come in. The Facebook distractions and the internet distractions started to come in. And that's when you've seen a stark decline from 2010 to 2025 of black men enrolling in college. And then that's when you see black women, of course, because a lot of those movements were towards black girl magic and women empowerment. That's when you've seen a rise of black women going into college. So college did not work for black men. And mostly because it's kind of like when black men went to the army, right? And then we came out. And then America still treated us like shit. Couldn't get jobs. There was no opportunities, right? So a lot of black men went to college. Then they came out, couldn't get jobs. There was no opportunity. Have all this massive debt, and then trying to figure out how to get out of it. I know men that went to college and for years and years they've been trying to figure out how to get rid of their debt. On top of that, not coming from a family structure where you can borrow from your family or borrow from mother or borrow from somebody, and then needing to take specialties of knowledge to really be able to get loans so you can build on top of ideas, but there was no venture capital in the community. You weren't getting the loans from the banks, right? That entrepreneurial route really did not kick in until the 2020 after COVID kicked up. And then you seen a lot of people jump into that curve. And before that, social media was gaining progress. And then they started pushing black women into college. But what did that really do? Collectively, if we look at that, we celebrate black women going to college as a black excellence thing and not as a black power thing. The black excellence thing is say, look at enrollment rates, look at graduation rates. But then we have to understand that black women are holding more debt from college than black men, which is somewhere around an average of $32,000 in debt. So now when we see student loan forgiveness not happening and things of that nature, that's affecting black women the most, increasing debt while assets are continuously arising, right? And then there's all of this single women struggling and single families struggling. And then coming from a struggling household of seeing a single. So the question becomes again, it's like, if we took this as a black power thing, then it would have been different because we'd have been focused on the collective. We wouldn't have said that women on one team, men on one team, right? And we would have said, no, we on the same team. So therefore, we go get things that benefit the whole. So now you got your degree, I got my entrepreneurial skill sets. Let's combine them together and let's empire build for our own sovereignty. But that won't happen because we all see each other as a family, so we're supposed to root for when each other does something, not looking at the economics attached to it. So we really should be looking at, the debt ratio. We should be looking at how much credit they're taking out, right? We should be looking at the financial literacy, the economic literacy. What are the future plans? Like, how are we setting this up as a family unit and or structure? Because if that's not happening, but the reality of it is a lot of women went and they just wanted not to dismantle the patriarchy. They wanted access to it. They didn't want to really dismantle the empire. They wanted access to it. And when black men are not going to college, black women are going to college, this being touted as excellence, right? This being touted as ignorance, not looking at the reasons why on either side, not realizing we're both going into a debt pool, especially when the skill sets of the future are going to change and a lot of the degrees you're getting are outdated in the first place. What are we really being set up in the future for? To fail. Especially when most people are going to get sociology degrees and psychology degrees, and they're replacing that with AI in the first place. So now that degree is null and void, and all you're left with is debt. And you have a mentality of single, firm, independent strongness to where you say you don't need a man, and the man says, oh, if you don't need me, then I don't want you. And then, of course, it's not oversimplified to those effects, but this is the feeling that is existing in culture right now. A whole lot of black excellence that don't mean nothing because almost 90% of black women that are in positions of power in government got them a white man. But we still supposed to celebrate that. That's black excellence, not black power. So again, I've never been somebody that I ever wanted to be confused with the idea of celebrating black excellence, when what's hurt my spirit and my heart this whole entire time with us is that we don't see the necessity, mostly because people don't understand the complexity of the problem. And I don't know everything. I'm just a man philosophizing, trying to understand as I research these things, right? Going off my experience to one day have the wisdom and understanding truly to get it. But I also don't believe I need to have it by myself. But I also realize that most people don't want to do it. You know what's funny? And this is why a lot of people get jaded. I got offered equity to work with this company, right? Really good deal. And I had to take a step back. I said, Keys, you've been doing this for like 10 years. Nobody has ever offered you this before, right? Nobody inside of my community that looks like me has offered it directly. And I'm like, damn, this is what happens to a lot of people. You go your whole life working, building, so-called being excellent, you know what I mean, brilliant, like really working for your people. And then sometimes somebody that's outside your community that recognizes it and offer you what you think should come from inside your community, and it changes your perspective. And from that day forward, you act different. It really depends on the person giving you the opportunity, changes your perception of reality. If it's somebody that looks like you, it creates loyalty within. Somebody looks outside of you, it changes your perspective, and you're like, I don't hear all that black power shit. Nobody did nothing. And most people so busy trying to develop the skill set that's going to get them out of survival mode, right? That they don't have time to learn all the other nuances to care. So they don't have a depth of knowledge on these things. And then we started focusing on those who became successful to be the leaders, right? So popularity and success in the way of capitalism, people started to push up and listen to, even though they have not been the most intelligent people, because it really doesn't require advanced intelligence to be successful in America. It really just require one focus. You don't have to be the smartest person to make the most money. That's not how it works. So as we move forward, the idea is collective progress, seeing ownership, right? Everybody doesn't happen to be the philosopher, the scholar, the thought leader, the intellectual. But we do need to have that counsel and understand that there's never been a great black civilization, whether it's the Moors, whether it was the Empire of Mali, right? Whether it's the Dogon people, that is ever built without having a council model, a wise elder leader tribe of people that they went through. Mansa Musa didn't gain wealth by himself because he was the most intelligent man in the world. He gained it because he inherited a system that was set up, and he had him a council as well that he would go to source that wisdom, to know how to move. He set up the systems of gold in a way to where he inherited that, to where he was able to control gold. The Moors, they set it up in a way to where they didn't go over there and fight with weapons and bullets. They controlled supply chains of knowledge, of food, right? They set up things that the Europeans couldn't, and the Europeans became so reliant on them. And then the question becomes, okay, well, what is the one industry that we can control? Well, look at the things that we consume the most. Look at the things that we produce the most. Start with media, entertainment. Start with our consumption power. And then if we start with there and we shift that, it goes from boycotts to boycotts. Because we realize that there's a lot of things that are black-centric. We look at the media networks that are able to get black dollars because they're black-centric, meaning they have a black audience, a black consumption. So therefore, people are giving them the capital on top of that. Most of it is that we don't understand black power, why we don't get it. And most of us fear white power too much to have our own. And you have to get out that mentality, because right now they're telling you, regardless, you have to do for self. Save yourself. Peace.